Hello, my name is Stefan Grafe. I'm the CEO and developer of TrustLogic. I had the pleasure to work with Professor Wilhelm Salber, the father of the most modern psychology, and the wonderful psychologist Barbara Grossgard about 20 years ago to understand how does trust form, how is it experienced, and that's how we developed the TrustLogic approach. In this short video presentation, we would like to take you through the critical importance that trust has for your business. We also would like to show you briefly what the methodology of TrustLogic is all about, how to read those results, and most importantly, we will take you through examples how that trust for some of these brands can actually practically be built. If your brand is included and you would like to have more granular data, or you would like to discuss it with us, or you would like to test TrustLogic in one of your surveys, it can easily be integrated in any of your surveys through the very short TrustLogic survey module. So please don't hesitate to contact us. So let's get into it. In the 2025 Financial Services TrustLogic Report, we looked at 30 leading brands in banking, private health insurance, and in super funds. And we looked at what drives their trust, what are they trusted for, and what is the overall level of their trust. But let's get started first. How important do you actually think trust is to your success? When we conduct our training workshops, that's one of the first questions we ask. Most of the time, people say it's a 9 or a 10 out of 10 in importance, and I'm sure you would probably pick a similar number. But then we ask, can you actually prove it with facts and figures? And very few people have those. So here are some of those facts and figures that tell you how critically important trust is to your success. First of all, trust really determines the vast majority of your KPIs, or in research land, we talk about driving your KPIs. When you look at your Net Promoter Score, if you use it, it's about 70% in this study, but we've seen values of up to 85% with specific brands. When we talk about your brand reputation, 78% of that is driven by trust. So when you think about it, it's only 20% that are not explained by trust. And statistically, in social sciences, values over 70% are actually quite rare. So practically, if you get over 70%, you know you've captured it all. Consideration, critical for your acquisition, 70% driven by trust. And loyalty, 3/4 of that is driven by trust. Kind of makes sense when you think about it. The more I trust you, the more I'm willing to recommend you. The more I trust you, the more I think your reputation is good. The more I trust you, the more I'm willing to buy from you. And of course, the more I trust you, the more loyal I am to you. So let's have a look at those behavior changes in detail. We measure trust on a scale from 0 to 10, like you would do with your Net Promoter Score in most cases. In here, we don't even show the 0 to 5, but we start at 5 because that starts to become trust neutral and trusting. Everything 0 to 4 is always considered active distrust. That means customers just try to get away from you. In our cognitive testing, that means qualitative interviews, we confirmed what people mean when they give those scores. When they score you 5 or 6 out of 10, they still mean trust neutral. That means they don't trust you, but neither do they distrust you. 7 and 8 means they trust you. And 9 and 10, we consider that high trust. And when you look at the behavior changes that happen with every little bit more trust, it is almost a doubling with every point more trust in the likelihood to recommend you, the likelihood to buy from you, and of course to be loyal to you. With loyalty, we get an additional big step even from 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10. And one of our clients said, that's bloody hard to achieve, but it's so worth it, and we have to use everything that we have to be more trusted. But it's not just with our customers where trust is critically important. When we look at the public, our reputation, the sense that you have a good reputation, that you relate well to people like them, and that you're valuable for our community increases exponentially with every little bit more trust. When we look at your investors, it's the same thing. The likelihood to invest with you and the likelihood to invest with you for the long term increases exponentially with every little bit more trust. With our people, of course, our people would like to work for a trusted brand. But the willingness to go the extra mile, to stay with you, to recommend to others to work with you, and to support management decisions grows with every little bit more trust. Therefore, in all your business areas, in whatever role you're in, trust is a critical component of your success. It is really important, though, especially in a competitive manner, that people always choose the one they trust most. So it doesn't matter what level of trust you have, unless you're ultimately the most trusted by the customer to stay with you, or the most trusted for a prospect to choose you, you're just simply not getting the business. There is most of the time no prize for the second most trusted. But so how do we build that trust? To do that, we researched 20 years ago with a big program across Europe. How do people actually experience trust in brands, organizations, and interpersonal trust? We didn't even have the idea to develop a tool out of it. We just simply wanted to understand it because we knew how critically important it is. What we found is that we can't actually just trust. Every time we talk to people and we ask them, who do you trust? Why do you trust? Why don't you trust? They instantly connect it to tangible reasons. And that means we can only trust for specific reasons that we know about a person, organization, or brand. As trust has evolved in us over millions of years as the fundamental sense to not just be secure, but to also thrive and achieve new things, of course our mind has a clear logic of trust. It helps us to make all our daily decisions in milliseconds and actually function extremely well. So of course, that sense can't be complex if it's there to simplify our lives. So what our mind does is it looks at all these reasons that it's exposed to, and in milliseconds checks in 6 distinct categories of trust what they can trust you for and how important these things are to trust you. And then it sums it up really as the overall score of trust. That's the 7.4 or 7.7 out of 10. What TrustLogic does, it understands those 6 categories of trust and how they interact. That's probably the big achievement we had with Professor Salber and Barbara. These 6 categories of trust will be very intuitive to you because ultimately, as we just said, TrustLogic only visualizes what happens in your mind anyway. So on the left hand, you've got stability trust. Stability trust is about why can I trust you to have built a strong and stable foundation that I can rely on. That's about your size, your longevity, and your past achievements. On the opposite side, you've got development trust. Development trust is why can I trust you to develop well in the future, be successful, and stay relevant to me? We're talking about financial services. Most of the time, I don't pick a financial services company like a bank or a private health insurance or super fund or life insurance just for the next year or two. It's a lifetime decision. So unless I actually trust that you will develop really successfully in the future, I simply don't trust you enough and I will not engage with you. On the top left, you've got relationship trust. That's about why can I trust you to relate well to me and to other people like me? How do you manifest it? How do you show that you're invested in me? The bottom right, we've got benefit trust. That's the typical what's in it for me in all aspects. On the top right, you've got vision trust. And vision trust is about what kind of vision and values can I trust you for that are also appealing to me and I want to support. And lastly, on the bottom left, we've got competence trust. That is about what kind of competencies can I trust you for that I can be sure that you succeed and deliver. It is these 6 categories of trust that we need to fill with the right reasons to trust to build more trust with our customers and with any of our other audiences. When we trained this TrustLogic model to a sales team, it was quite interesting that one of the participants simply said, pretty intuitive, it's like 6 buckets of trust that I have to fill. Now I know what the buckets are and I just have to find the right reasons to do it. And that stuck. Now most of our clients actually call TrustLogic just the simple 6 buckets of trust. So it's 6 buckets of trust that I have a clear label and that I now know what reasons I can fill them with. In the quantification, though, it is really important that we know which of those trust buckets are most important. And that's often one of the first questions from participants. Are all these 6 buckets equally important? Psychologically and statistically, they are. However, situationally and in context, they are not. And that's why we conduct a driver analysis to see which of those trust buckets are most important to your audience at this point in time or in context across the customer journey. In this example, we see, even visually, that it is development trust and competence trust being most important. And then we put into the survey all these great reasons that you can already be trusted for. That's your trust equity. And that we explore typically internally with your teams, or you do it yourself. And then we use our TrustLogic AI to find all your hidden trust equity on the internet very quickly. And we can tell your teams very precisely what actions, features, and messages they need to use to fill your priority trust buckets most effectively and increase your trust. That clear focus and fact-based focus is really quite powerful. With one of our clients, we identified that development trust carried about 33% of all trust. So 1/3 of all trust was driven by one trust bucket. Then we identified the key messages and we implemented them across sales, service, and marketing and communications. And within 4 months, we could see that trust had increased overall by 10%, but development trust specifically increased by 19%. Therefore, that's ultimately what we do in this study as well. And here's quickly why you can rely on TrustLogic being really sound. In this study, we looked also at TrustLogic driving trust, your net promoter score, reputation, consideration, and loyalty. Because if we claim that TrustLogic is the correct understanding of trust, then of course it has to drive those KPIs also to a very high degree. And we found in this study that TrustLogic drives a good 83% of trust, 3/4 of the net promoter score, 83% of your reputation, 70% of your consideration, and 3/4 of your loyalty. That means you have a robust model to now address those KPIs and improve your top line and bottom line results. In the report, one of the first items you find is, of course, your trust level. And everyone is always interested in who is the most trusted versus the least trusted. Sometimes a little bit of clickbait, despite the fact that people choose the most trusted. What we give you in the report is, first of all, the trust composite score. This score is not just asking people, what's your level of trust in, let's say, Commonwealth Bank, because it's fairly abstract and has inaccuracy. What we do with the trust composite score is we take the scores of all 6 trust buckets and average them out. And that gives a more precise reading of what your actual trust level is. So you will find that in the report. Secondly, of course, you need to know what your trust consists of, and You need to be able to track it over time to see actually if you're making a difference in your activities. In this example, we see that benefit trust is highest, but relationship trust and vision trust are lowest. Therefore, we're looking at whether that is actually the right choice to focus on with the trust driver analysis. And this driver analysis tells us which of those trust buckets are most important to your audience to trust you more. In this case, and this is Commonwealth Bank, we see very clearly that it is vision trust with almost 1/3 and relationship trust with almost 1/4 of trust. That means a good 53% of all trust is driven by just vision and relationship trust. And therefore, that's the focus. In the report, you find that really nicely displayed just simply with the trust composite score, the trust profile, and the trust drivers for each of those brands. As I said, we have more data underneath and we can do a few more different cuts if you're more interested in that. And otherwise, of course, you can just simply very quickly put the TrustLogic survey module into any of your surveys with any of your partners and just simply try it out. Let's have a look at a practical example. On the bottom left, you see the results also for the National Australia Bank, and it's actually very similar to the Commonwealth Bank. One of the interesting results in this study is that coming out of COVID and the economic crisis, we see very similar patterns in what drives trust as we saw a good 15 years ago when we came out of the GFC. So it is a clear pattern and shifting of the importance of the trust buckets over time in line with competitive activity, but also in line with economic and political environments. So the NAB also relationship trust and vision trust focus. And on the 24th of March or 25th of March, as almost like a little footnote when we looked it up, NAB had just put out a press release that it had been awarded Best Small Business Bank for the 3rd year running. That is actually a very big trust driver for relationship trust, but here it was used almost just as a footnote when certainly it could have used far more air and pushed through the CRM systems to the different teams to utilize it. Because when you look at it, in Australia, we have over 1 million small businesses. Therefore, everyone has some friends or family that have a small business or work in a small business. And therefore, this would create probably quite a lot of relationship trust. Or if you had the TrustLogic in your tracking, you could quickly check how important it would be and then prioritize whether to use it or not. With that in mind, let's hop over to our TrustLogic AI, and I will quickly show you how you can look at the results. And let's say your most important trust bucket is vision trust and competence trust, how you can very quickly look up some examples. What would potentially build more trust in your vision and in your competencies, and then instantly create trust optimized content. So now let's play a little bit with our TrustLogic AI, because that shows you how fast and practical it is to utilize TrustLogic and to scale it through the organization. Where in the past we had to train all the teams extensively in applying it, the TrustLogic AI is effectively the one trust building expert that you can now get to do anything for you. So go to trustlogic.info and simply into the Trust AI. I'm already logged in, but you can simply sign up with no credit card required onto the always free plan, and you have free access to it as well. What you will find immediately in the top left is the Quick Start menu. Simply go in and select Find Trust Builders. As we saw for National Australia Bank, the most important trust bucket was Vision Trust. So we just type the brand name, select the trust bucket for which we want to find great reasons to make you trustworthy, and now we hit Go Find. What our TrustLogic AI does is it combines our 20 years TrustLogic experience together with the latest ChatGPT model, which is segregated, so your data is secure and not visible to anyone else. And it uses Google to find your hidden trust equity that you can use to fill the vision trust bucket. So it gives you immediately the ammunition to fill the bucket, but also great ideas what else could build more trust in your vision. Here we see, for example, that the bank is investing into renewable energy projects. And now, of course, you would like to know that the source is verifiable. And that took us a lot of work to make sure that the AI is not constantly hallucinating and that you can rely on it. And that's where you can easily check it. So I just hit source. And immediately I find, hey, that's hidden in the full year results. So therefore, you can be sure you can actually use this one. Now, of course, I can use it to create anything. I could create a sales conversation for a mortgage product or a social media post in EDM, or I can ask it to write an investor update with these trust builders. And immediately our TrustLogic AI goes and creates the content with you, and then you can further refine it. You immediately have the investor update with the sources, just for you to double check, and it lists them as well for you at the bottom. In addition to that, our TrustLogic AI uses heuristics, so our natural biases and thinking patterns and creative techniques for the copywriting. So now let's look at another little thing. If you want to include TrustLogic as a survey module into your own surveys with your partners or yourself internally, the Trust Analyzer does the entire analysis automatically for you. If you therefore go to the Trust Analyzer, you will find a full demo for Volkswagen where we did a proactive study, so we can share it with you. And you can find all their results, and you can toggle between owners and prospects and see all their different trust profiles, trust drivers, and write down to the specific messages or proof points that fill those trust buckets and how strongly they fill them. And at the bottom, you can also then utilize the AI to immediately use the analysis results in an example, for example, VW prospects. And we have pre-formed a sales conversation for the car sales showroom. And we included in the prompt that it should look up on the US T-Rock website for specific features to include as well that fill those key trust buckets. So that's just for a little bit of fun for you to play with. And in the analyzer, you can link straight to SurveyMonkey or to your other survey platform and immediately do the analysis from there. Or you just export the data as Excel files and you drag and drop them here. As an example, I will just use one of the Volkswagen ones. Let's take the 35 to 54-year-olds. I drag the file into the field. All the analysis, including two really complex driver analyses to show you the results. And then we should see the results here for the VW customers. We see the most important trust buckets. In this case, it is very strongly development trust and competence trust. And we see also if there are any differences when it comes to specifically the Net Promoter Score, whether we're looking at loyalty. Consideration is not included because it is customers. And then we see again which specific messages or trust equity is most important to this specific cohort. And then, of course, you can immediately click the Save to AI button. And if you go back to the Trust AI, it will automatically use the most important trust buckets and most important trust builders to create your content. That's it for this presentation. Thank you very much for watching, and look out for the webinars that we are going to hold around the data to delve deeper into the data and contextualize it for you.